Dan, pleasure having you in, brother.
Nice meeting you guys.
Really appreciate making the trip out to Chicago, and I'm most thankful for the fact that you brought the good weather because it's about 40 degrees outside, and last week it was negative 20.
Yeah, it has not been nice, especially I'm from New Jersey, so it's been pretty brutal too there. You're from New York, right?
From California, living in New York.
Yeah.
Haven't gotten used to the cold quite yet, but I'm just thankful that finally we're going to see some sun here in Chicago because it's been a while. Well, hey, our listeners have asked a couple times to have you on the show, knowing that you're a Dub Club handicapper, and they've been very pleased with your work as a subscriber of yours. So I know a lot of people are going to be fired up to watch this episode. Let's just jump into the start of where you began this journey as a content creator, as a handicapper, as a sports fanatic.
Yeah, well, sports fanatic since I was like 6. I'd print out rosters of NFL teams and like go to school and just study the names and like try to learn it all. I was addicted to Madden, the classic. And then all throughout later stages of high school and college, that's when I started getting to DFS and handicapping as well. But in terms of the content, I tried it about probably 3 summers ago now, long format content on YouTube, which, as you know, is much slower growing and tougher to grow on, and I just didn't have the time and didn't put enough effort in with the editing and whatnot to really take that off. But then basically a year later, I'd graduated college. About 2 months out of college, I went to go work for a company that was in the DFS space, and I was there making a minimum wage, just kind of getting by and, figuring out what I wanted and what I liked. And I was getting on phone calls with creators and understanding how the affiliate market space really worked and how they were getting paid. And, I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like, I want to do that. Like, I love talking about sports. I don't want to be on this side of the call. I want to be on that one. So basically on the train ride home from New York, I pretty much commuted like 4 to 5 hours a day. I would start making the videos or editing them or doing whatever I could to get out one video a day. That's something I told myself I just had to make a video a day, even if it was like even a little bit low effort. I had to do something. And within like 3 weeks of doing that, I had a video about Cooper Kupp blow up. And literally that night, I made probably like 20 more videos just on other players. And they all caught steam. And in 2 weeks, I went from 500-ish followers to 15K. And
Jeez.
Yeah, that's pretty much where it started.
That's incredible. All the way up to 250K followers on TikTok. You've grown your Twitter presence. I know that hasn't been an emphasis for you, but from 400 followers back in November all the way up to almost 60,000.
Mm-hmm.
How were you able to make this rise to stardom, some might say, in such a quick period of time?
I guess just being able to put yourself out there and really not care what people think is the first step. You got to just do it. A lot of people, they just spend so much time wondering how they're going to do it. They never actually put the first video out. And so that's the first step. Just learning how to edit, like don't take any shortcuts kind of thing, just put your full effort in. I don't really know why me specifically. I guess like I just have that tone of like, actually me and my friend Max, people may know him, Fantasy Football AZ. We've talked about this where our delivery is more like matter of fact, I guess. Mm-hmm. Some creators, it doesn't strike the audience as polarizing, and the polarizing type of stuff tends to get more views. So I guess that's probably a good point to make, that gets a lot more of the views when you talk in a certain way.
Yeah. Let's dive into the handicapping side of things. That's great context on how to actually get your start. But why are people actually following you? Why are they liking your content? It's because you're a damn good handicapper and sports bettor, and you just have a really good feel for the market. Your emphasis has seemed to be on the player prop side of the house. Has that always been the case? Or where do you find that you have the most success from the handicapping side?
Yeah, I flip-flopped a lot. It started definitely with like fantasy football and then DFS, so I was always into the player first kind of thing. 2 years ago, probably 3 years ago now, I got really into the team side. But I'm back on the players. I don't know. I just it's a little more fun to root for the players, I guess. And honestly, the edge is bigger.
Yeah,
it's easier to project player discrepancies and lines than like the teams. Vegas knows what they're doing when they're setting the Kansas City Chiefs, being 2-point underdogs this weekend for the Super Bowl. Like, they know what they're doing. It's very, very accurate. So I think there's a little bit more room with the player props.
Is there a sport in particular that you seem to find the most value in? I know you've had a very, very successful NFL season and are off to a great start here in the NBA, but what sport do you find the most value in?
Definitely NFL. And just the way I approach it, where I look game first rather than player first. Like I try to, in my head, and using like Vegas lines and projections as well, but like try to really visualize how this game would go scheme-wise and just things like that. And that really helps, especially with parlaying. That's a lot of my content is making parlays. You want to have good correlation. You want to understand how the game is going to go for everything to hit. So approaching it from a game aspect really helps.
That's super interesting. In terms of when you're building a slate in a given day, where does that process even start? Are there tools that you're using in particular? Is it literally just you visualizing, okay, I think that the Ravens have a great defense, their front seven's fantastic, so Mahomes is going to be throwing downfield, so let me target the wideouts?
Yeah, it's a mix of using sites that, aggregate projections, using the Vegas lines themselves to see where player props are at. Obviously, there's great apps that show you discrepancy in those Vegas lines across different apps like that. But a lot of it does come from my own projecting and my own analysis in my head of the game kind of thing. It's a mixture of both. I'm not all math or all, thought process, I guess. I'm kind of a mixture.
Yeah, there's a lot of commentary in the space about plus EV and every play being very data-driven. It sounds like you both rely on that data aspect side of the house and the positive expected value, but also you just have this natural knack and instinct for what the scheme and the game plan in a given day is going to be.
Yeah, there's definitely some great plus EV plays that I also take advantage of. But then other times there is just that feel of like certain games when people are a little bit too confident, and like the Ravens last week when I was on the Chiefs and the Bills before that. There's just times when you just see the market really on something that you just can't get behind, and you just don't see the same thing that they do. Granted, you lose at that too sometimes.
Yeah.
But more often than not, it seems to be correct for me.
Is there a bet type in particular that you've relied on to put up these tremendous numbers over the years? Is it, passing yards, completions, receiving yards, receptions? Is there really a niche that you've carved out, or is it just kind of vary game to game?
Yeah, it's usually probably just stacking quarterbacks and wide receivers, I'd say, is the main format of correlation. There is one that I've actually never said, and this is a sport that I don't really I don't even handicap like publicly. But I used to 2 to 3 years ago, I would handicap hockey, and when a team would be up, like say 3-2, and there's only 4 minutes left, you have to get it right where it's like between like 3 to 4 minutes before Vegas takes down the lines on DraftKings or FanDuel or whatever, and you bet on that team that's up 3-2 to win by -1.5. So like they have to score basically an empty netter, because in hockey they always bring out the goalie for those last couple minutes, and you usually get those lines at like +160 or more. So it's like I made a lot of money by just doing that over and over and over. I didn't care what the teams were or anything. It was just the empty netters with plus money. It was raking in money for a while. So that was a really good one for me.
It sounds like a little cheat code, right?
No, I haven't said that like anywhere. So you get the first scoop of that.
Any other good little cheat codes that you've picked up on that you could share with our listeners? Because that's a pretty good one right there.
Yeah, I mean that's the one I'll give out. I have some other ones for football, I guess, but that one specifically was just like you don't even have to think. It's just like lock it in.
Absolutely, I love that. We had a capper on Chili Bets. You may know him. He has a big presence on Twitter, but he was telling us that he found a glitch within FanDuel in terms of reverse correlation plays. And in New Jersey, they had actually made the adjustment to their algorithm, but I guess FanDuel in Tennessee hadn't made that adjustment. So he would fly down to Tennessee and got a hotel room for like 3 weeks and was just hammering it until they eventually made the adjustment as well. But
that's similar to back when Underdog Fantasy used to not. Now they nerfed their correlation. So if you do Patrick Mahomes or Travis Kelce, it's nerfed. It used to be a 10x payout for a 4-leg parlay no matter what. And I was on top of that, and I would always tell people on FanDuel, you're getting 100 turns into 700. On Underdog, it's 100 into 1,000. Like, that's a really big edge over a long period of time. Unfortunately, most of these daily fantasy apps completely switch that. Like, Sleeper doesn't even allow you to correlate. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah.
How about this is something that I've always found fascinating, and there's been a lot of commentary around, two-man pairings, or essentially like two-leg parlays versus six-man. I know even some books are now offering plays beyond that. I know if you go to a natural sports book, you can parlay as many legs as you want. But with these DFS apps, I've seen many of them limit to 6 legs. Do you have a strong opinion on whether to play two men on a consistent basis, 6-leggers? Where do you stand on that front?
I mean, the math says overall parlays are bad, and they get worse as you add legs to it. The plus EV definitely goes down. But that's where it comes into play of like finding the best odds specifically for those parlays. You can't be, taking the easy road and whichever. But let's say you play DraftKings every single day, you should be playing on 5-6 books, so you at least maximize the odds to get a little bit of EV back. I'd say primarily focus like for content between 4 to 5 legs, because it seems like that's kind of what people want. But I definitely like 2 to 3 leggers are in the long run more profitable. But of course, straight bets, if you really want to be long-term profitable, are the way to go.
I know much of the content that you put out there is around, the parlays, and that's been a focus for yours. Are you also betting action straight kind of behind the scenes, or is it, personal plays, like you said, with your hockey action, your hockey cheat code?
Yeah. No, I do straight bets as well. What's funny is the 2 biggest straight bets I put down this season when I was most confident. One was in I believe it was the division. No, it was the wild card round. The Steelers versus Bills. I put down $3,000 on Josh Allen's passing yards, and I showed basically my big write up of everything. I liked every single over for his, like rushing yards, a touchdown, like 2 passing touchdowns, like pretty much everything. The one bet that I loved the most was the passing yards, and every other bit hit. That one did not hit. So it was pretty brutal. So I do take all my bets as straight bets, and I do tell people on Twitter or Dub Club that as well, that if you want to be making money, take them as straights, and if you want to have fun, sure, parlay them.
One of my next questions was going to be, you've been doing this for a long time. You've been studying sports for a long, long time. So you've built this awesome knowledge base for how to become a profitable sports bettor. It sounds like that in particular is at the top of your list, playing stuff straight as well as parlaying for fun. What other advice would you give to young, up-and-coming sports bettors looking to crack profit on their own?
I would say, to be honest, when I was first getting started, I did really well just doing the hockey bets I was mentioning, but really just focusing on bankroll management, not going overboard when you're winning or especially chasing. I swear you lose like 70% of the time when you're chasing bets. If you don't do the right research and you don't like it immediately, and then you find, you go back later and you're like, maybe I'll take LeBron over because why not? He's a beast. Like that never goes well. Don't do that. And I will say, when I did really screw up my bankroll management was when I started getting bored with the straights. Even though I was making money, I started, putting in some stupid like 4-leg parlays for no reason. And it really completely messed up my bankroll management, because when you lose those parlays, you don't think, let me just straight bet more to make it back. It's like, let me just parlay more to make it back. So it's psychologically, it's not great.
Absolutely. Well, another question that I had for you that our listeners always find to be interesting are your biggest cashes and worst beats. It sounds like the Josh Allen one is up there for you. Any other bad beats come to mind?
Yeah, the Josh Allen one was close because he was like 20 yards away and he had a 53-yard touchdown. Like, they crushed the Steelers. Like, everything went wrong, and he still was very close. But definitely, there was a couple. So there was an Aaron Rodgers half-a-yard special on a couple apps earlier in the season, and it was, of course, he throws like 3 passes, none of them get complete, and then he tears his Achilles. So some of the apps obviously gave that as a win because they felt bad, but I'm not sure all of them did. So that was insane to see. But I had one recently with Nikola Jokic against the Warriors, where the Warriors were up by like 25. I had a decent-sized bet on Steph, and I believe the other one was Aaron Gordon, and also like a 6-leg parlay on top of that. And this is when Jokic, of course, hit his half-court, just random, behind the head, like whatever that motion is that he shoots with, that he seems to do every single year from some ridiculous angle, and that completely ruined overtime, which would have hit pretty much everything for me. So that was definitely brutal.
That's tough. The A-Rod one, I feel you on. I'm glad that some of those apps graded as a win, but I know that many of them did not.
Yeah.
How about biggest cashes? Any favorites come to mind for you?
My favorite one is definitely when when the Bills and the Chiefs had that ridiculous AFC I think it was the championship game, I believe, or maybe divisional round, but basically where there was 13 seconds left on the clock from Mahomes to get it to overtime, because I had an 8-leg parlay that was like, it was like plus 11,000 odds or something like that, and I was like Travis Kelce touchdown, which hit on the last play. Basically, it was over the 54.5 point total, I think it was. Jerick McKinnon, a bunch of different stuff, and like just that insane sequence at the end of the game where they kept ping-ponging back and forth, and then they hit overtime for Kelce to get the touchdown. I mean, that was insane. The plus 11,000, just in that moment of watching it live with that type of game environment, that may be the best game I've ever seen. So like winning with it, oh man.
I unfortunately was on the under in that one. Potentially the worst read in sports betting history.
It looks good for a while until they just went nuts.
So I believe there were 27 points in the last minute and 45 seconds.
Yeah.
So, a little bit of a heartbreaker, but at least it was, to your point, the best game that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So, just a few months ago, you officially launched your Dub Club. Was this the first time that you had built a community and really brought everybody together into one place, fans, followers, subscribers? And if so, how do you feel like it's going thus far?
It's going well. I've had Discords before, and I've tried this on other apps as well, but this is the first time I'm using it as a form of giving out the plays early before I put them on Twitter, because when you put them on Twitter, they usually get bumped a little bit. But yeah, it's nice having a dedicated Discord community, because I've had it in the past for fantasy football, and as the season goes on, that kind of dies out. But it seems like with the sports betting and just the Dub Club community, it's really passionate people that are on my Discord every day asking me, when are the picks coming, or like sweating them with me and stuff like that. So it's a good time.
Yeah, that's been one thing that's been fun to see, because much of the content and plays that you give out, in fact, you give them all out for free. Mm-hmm. You have such a loyal following base and people that are so interested in maximizing their CLV, just with how soft the markets can be and how quickly they can move, and the player props in particular. Fun seeing people comment like, hey, thanks, we beat the line by 2 points here. Mm-hmm. Has that been the biggest point of value, do you feel like, for your subscribers?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, I like to give all my plays out for free, because in my eyes, I just want to grow my following as much as possible and just help as many people as possible. So that's why I do give out the lines early, to really give them that edge that could put them over the top. A lot of people in my Dub Club do love to parlay, though, and they always ask me, like, what's the best parlay for this game? So they still like to have fun. But yeah, no, it's been great.
How often are you jumping in the server and actually interacting with your subscriber base? Is it on a daily basis, answering questions and giving advice, giving out leans and stuff like that?
Yeah, it's every single day. There was actually one a couple weeks ago when Mostert was ruled out. It was in the regular season, and A-Chain's line, I think it was against the Ravens actually, was still at 36.5 yards, I believe. And the first thing I did was just at the VIP chat in the Discord, I was like, guys, I don't know how this line is still up on DraftKings. It was down on FanDuel, it was down everywhere, but I dropped like I think $1,100, $1,200 on that at the time, and I told them all to put some money on it too. And it actually took them a while for DraftKings. It took them like 10 minutes to adjust this line, and it got up to like 54 that night. And I think by game time it was like 58 or something like that. He ended up going for over 100. Didn't matter, but It was just such a plus EV that I'm like, how is this line still up here? So being able to put that in the Dub Club, I didn't even put it on Twitter until the next day when I showed the slips. So definitely some extra value provided in there.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, to beat the market by 15 points, 16 rushing yards is. I'm sure your Dub Club subscribers were pretty thankful for that one.
Yeah, there was a lot of people in there that were like, I'm so happy to be on that. As soon as they saw like 10 minutes later the line was at 54 or whatever, they were like, oh my God, this is amazing. Yeah.
Are there any things in particular that you plan on doing to kind of take your Dub Club and your community that you're building to the next level? Live streams, podcasts, little things like that?
Yeah, definitely something I have to figure out during the off season. I was really in grind mode with NFL and just creating. I do a lot of video content, and most of my Dub Club all of my Dub Club has come from Twitter. So kind of reworking how that's going to be, and if I want to expand into other sports as well, I'm probably going to definitely going to do baseball, because we have that for like a whole month and nothing else. So I'm going to have to get on that. I want to get into UFC as well, maybe some hockey stuff too. But yeah, just probably expanding those types of avenues.
And when you're getting ready to feel comfortable putting out plays on sport types that you may not have bet historically. How does that process start for you? You just dive right into deep research on where to find the most value in baseball and UFC, et cetera?
Yeah, it definitely starts a lot more plus EV and analytical for sure. Like football, I know in and out, like that's my best sport. Basketball is great too. I know golf, I know UFC, and I know NHL. Baseball is the one that I haven't had as much experience with, so that is going to be a lot more of my projection-based stuff. And as it goes on and as I pick up certain trends and whatnot, then it's going to probably, end up being more 50-50.
Yeah, that's one thing. I historically have not bet baseball great, but there's nothing better than sitting on a Wednesday and turning on a game at like 11 o'clock in the morning. Well, as a subscriber of yours, I'm fired up for you to get prepped for baseball season because I need somebody to tail. Really appreciate you coming out here. It's been a pleasure having you in the office, and we got to run out of here pretty shortly for the Bulls game. So thanks once again, Dan.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.